Welcome to Vicious Whispers with Mark Tullius, your source for horror, sci-fi, suspense, and all things violent.
Thank you guys so much for joining me today on Vicious Whispers with Mark Tullius. It's been about 3 weeks since I recorded an episode that was right before my family and I went to Europe to go hang out with our friends Misha and Marika. That was an incredible trip. A lot of stuff happened. Writing side, personal side, all kinds of good stuff. And at the end of the episode, I will read a chapter from the first chapter from Try Not to Die in a Dark Fairy Tale. That book came out last month, but I did not get my paperback. I didn't even get to see the paperback before I approved it, which is the first time that's ever happened. But fortunately, nailed it on the first try. Evan Boffman, the co-author, the guy who created the whole story, came up with all the ideas. He had a copy of it. I trusted his judgment. I'm glad I did because the book looks awesome. Super happy with it. And I will read the first chapter for you at the end of this. First, let's get to this. Why do I feel so good? Part of it, man, there's all kinds of shit that's been going on, all kinds of stuff that's been positive. But right before the trip started, I decided to completely cut out cannabis. So when I got the SPECT scan results on my brain from the Amon's clinic, I decided, you know what? I need to lay off cannabis. I'd seen all the studies before. When I did my book, TBR CTE, I had looked at all the studies on how cannabis affects the brain. I knew my brain wasn't going to look good, especially with all the TBIs, with everything else, with 36 years of smoking, a heavy amount. And so seeing that, hearing my brain was one of the worst that the doctor had seen in 20 years after all the scans he looked at, that was enough for me to cut down on cannabis, not to stop it, but to cut it down. I was maybe going to like 15%, 10%, but because I have an addictive personality, it was starting to pick back up. I was starting to rely on it more. So right before the trip started, I was like, you know what, let's just stop it. It wasn't because I was going to Europe or traveling with the family, because I've used cannabis like that before. Wasn't the reason why I did it. I just figured, you know what, I don't want it anymore. I don't need it, I don't think. And so I figured it would be a very good time to detox. The first 3 or so nights really sucked because when I stopped using cannabis, I have incredibly bad nightmares. Very graphic, very violent, so bad that I don't even want to go to bed at night. So that happened for the first couple nights and tossing and turning, shitty sleep. But once I got through that, everything else was cool. So the first 2 days of travel blew because it was, I think, like a 10 or an 11-hour flight overnight. Figured we were going to get some sleep. None of us slept. I should have known that. I think that happens to me every time. Actually, my son slept. He slept with his feet laying across everybody. So anytime I would almost fall asleep, he'd be pushing me with his toes. No one was comfortable. We all felt like ass. We got there, saw our friends. They took us to their place. Beautiful place outside of Frankfurt, Germany. So that was really cool. But then we got only 4 hours of sleep before we all piled in the van and Misha drove us to northern Italy. So that was about a 12-hour drive. So by the time we got there, we were pretty beat. But I'm glad we did it that way. It was very smart. And the awesome thing about the entire trip is Misha and Marika took care of everything. But before we go into that, a little bit on how I met them. We may have talked about this before, but because for me to go on a vacation with anybody, I've never done that with friends, except for like back in high school or something like that. And that's just partying and by myself and them. But I'd never gone with another family anywhere. I didn't know how it was going to be, if our kids were going to be a pain in the ass, if they were going to be bored. No idea how this would work out. But I did know that we like them a lot. They like us. They were the ones who had suggested it. They've been all over Europe. So when we said, yeah, they went ahead and over like the last 6 months, they were planning ahead. They were sending us polls. They were sending us photos saying, hey, do you like this photo or that photo? Like, which of these places would you rather go to? Polls on like, would you rather the beach or this? Do you want sunny or cloudy? All the stuff, type of food we wanted to eat, activities we wanted to do. So yeah, they did an amazing job of planning this whole thing. And what really made it nice and easy was the biggest thing for me was Misha did all the driving. There's no way I will ever go to Italy and drive, especially after seeing what it's like. People are fucking crazy there. No, I don't want that. That would be way too stressful. I know that driving could be a stressor for me, and that would have just put too much tension on me. Never want to experience that. But because he was doing it, it let me relax, listen to my music. I did a shitload of riding in the car. Didn't matter if we are going down the, like, flying down the Autobahn, or if the weather was crazy. I just completely trusted him, and I was able to relax and I was able to enjoy myself. So that part of it was amazing. But yeah, we started the trip out with, I think, I don't know, we're about 4 or 5 days in the Lake Garda area, which was beautiful. I love that place. We got to see so much cool stuff. Did a ton of walking, maybe a little bit too much, but it was good. Didn't do any jujitsu. My neck was a little bit jacked up, and we just didn't have time. And even though we had our gear and we're thinking, oh, maybe we'll get a day or two, I'm really glad that we didn't. The break was really good for my body, for my hip. But we were able to walk all around, checked out all kinds of cool stuff there. After that, we went to Tuscany and right outside of Florence. I didn't care for Florence nearly as much, probably because there's so many goddamn churches. Man, I mean, it looked really cool. The architecture was cool. Everything was beautiful. Probably more tourists there. But we stayed at this really quiet bed and breakfast, really remote, away from everything else. So nice and peaceful. I got so much writing there. I didn't go with the intention of getting any writing really, but that's where I started knocking out a short story for an anthology I'm doing for a friend. That story is, yeah, I really am enjoying it. I got a lot done, and it was really cool how the trip affected it, because in the story, the main character is a exchange student from Germany, so I kind of based him off of Misha. And one of really the most awful scene in the whole story is based off of an image that Marika gave me when she was telling me about this really nasty thing that she saw. So I was like, it just fed right into it. It is beautiful. And so that one was a lot of fun to develop. And that's what I was working on there. And from there, we went to Venice. Venice was beautiful. We had an amazing place. It was like on the third floor apartment overlooking the Grand Canal. Yeah, it was just really, really cool. So that was a lot of fun. Got a lot of walking down there. Everyone did a lot of shopping. I got a cool little stamp. The only thing I bought for myself on this trip was a cool little stamp for books. And so it has a T. I just started using it. I don't know if I'll continue using it for my signatures, but that's what I did on the batch of the Trend Diana Dark Fairy Tale that I just sent out yesterday. So that was all awesome. And then from Venice, we had to drive back to Germany, back to Frankfurt, and that drive, because that was about 14 hours. But again, I got a lot of shit done because I was working on Try Not to Die Super High. Now, I wasn't working on Trying to Die while I was super high. I was totally sober, but which is different. But I was really creative. Now, with the Trying to Die Super High, that's a book that Steve Montgomery and I started doing a long ass time ago. We knocked out the main story portion of it, all except for the very, very last part. But Steve's incredibly busy with his business. He has American Top Team in Asheville, North Carolina. He's incredibly busy. And I'm so busy with my books that I was like, no, we're never going to finish the Try Not to Die. But if we turned it into a Doom to Die, which is the other series that I was about to start, then all we have to do is, with that series, the only interactive portion of that series was going to be the ending, where there's three choices and all three were going to be fucked up. Maybe one was going to be right. I'm not sure. But those books were going to be a little bit more explicit, a little bit more, more violent, just a little bit more. So I was like, okay, Super High would fit for that. But while there, I was looking at those last two scenes. I'm like, you know what? Why do this? Why start the new series when Try Not to Die is starting to take off? When I'm putting so much time and effort and everything else on Try Not to Die, why do I want to start a different brand? Doesn't make sense. So I was like, I'll just do the Try Not to Die. I'll finish this one on my own. Like, Steve came up with the whole story, just like Evan came up with the story in Dark Fairy Tale. Steve was the one who came up with the story for Super High. So I was like, well, let me do my fair share. I'll knock out these death scenes. I can do it. And so within the course of like 5 days, I have knocked out a really good amount of these death scenes. Like all 25 of them. Really, some of them are done. Some are just really good rough drafts. Some maybe they're halfway there. But if over the next 2 weeks, I should have them all finished. I'll be able to send them to Steve for his approval. He could change some stuff. There's a lot of gun related stuff. He knows a ton about guns. I don't. And so he'll be able to fix up some of the fight scenes. It's amazing. He's spotting the UFC. He knows his action scenes. So we don't have to worry about that. He'll help with that as well. And then we'll send it to Lindsay, our editor. We'll have the cover finished up in the meantime. And then we have another book coming out really soon in the Try Not to Die universe. So that's fucking amazing. So that's what I was working on that trip and even on the airplane ride back home. So it was like a 14-hour drive to back to Frankfurt area. And then the next day we had to drive to Bochum. But before we did that, we stopped in Mainz and we were able to visit Misha's favorite comic book store, video game store, place he went as a kid and has been visiting since. So that was really cool. I got two books, two graphic novels that are in German. I was like, you know what? That's probably a really good way for me to read and to improve my understanding of the language because of the photos and everything else. So I picked up The Boys and another comic. So those should be cool. And then from there, we did the rest of the drive to Bochum. And so that ride was a little bit rough. The rain was terrible. I slept in the car, so it wasn't that big of a deal. Got some riding. And that night we went and saw the Starlight Express musical, and it was in German. So I wasn't sure how that was going to go down. For me, it was pretty awesome. I was able to understand, let's say, about half of the songs. The slower songs, for sure, I was able to pick up. When it was only one person singing, it was easier for me to understand than the whole chorus. But on that one, everyone was on roller skates. There was a lot of action. My daughter, she was the one who started the whole thing because she loves listening and watching musicals that are in different languages. Oftentimes, when I'm taking her to school, that's what she wants to listen to. And the fact that it was in German just made it cool for me as well. So I didn't know how Jake was going to do with it. At intermission, I said, "Hey, dude, do you want to take off? Do you want to go back to the hotel, or do you want to finish watching?" He's like, "No, I want to keep watching it." He loved it. He thought afterwards, he's like, "You know what? It was great because not knowing the language just let me appreciate the action and the story even more, just what they were doing on stage." So yeah, my daughter was so happy. My wife loved it. So that was incredible. And that was one of their favorite musicals. I think that might have been the first musical that Misha ever went to. So very cool that they could share all their experiences with us and yeah, and that we could enjoy it. And the very next morning we went to the zoo. We were there for a while, got on a lot more walking, saw some really cool stuff. But it was just such a cool time, just being able to spend time with them, how much my kids love them. Yeah, it's just really cool. I think I started trying to talk about it at the start of this. This is early in the morning. I'm tired. I forgot of how that relationship started, but I was on Marika's podcast, Child of the Library, a long time ago. I don't know how many years ago, probably 3 or 4, let's say about 4 years ago. And so even though she is a German speaker, she's born in Germany. She speaks multiple languages and she has her podcast in English, talking about the English books that she reads. So I requested to be a guest on her podcast. It was awesome because I think I just gotten Brightside translated, and it was an awful translation that I had to redo. But she was awesome. She was then on my podcast, and then after that, it's because of her that I went to the Frankfurt Book Fair in the first place. She had put that idea in my head. I'm so glad she did. First year I went there, her and her husband Misha showed up. Got to meet him. Really liked him a lot. They came out to see us in California the following year. I went back to Frankfurt last year, and that was amazing. I got to hang out with them more. They helped me so much. Just really, really cool people. They've been back to our house, and now in September, they're going to be coming back out here. They'll stay with us for about 3 or 4 days before they do a little tour of the US. So just super cool how that relationship took place. And just how much, yeah, my kids love them. Misha taught Jake how to fly his video drone. They just had great conversations, just had a lot of fun, played video games. So yeah, I couldn't ask for a better trip. It could not have gone better. So, and this is with me being not high the entire time, no cannabis whatsoever. Didn't feel like I ever needed it. And a big part of that is my anxiety just has gone down so much. So between the functional mushrooms, the non-psychedelic mushrooms that I use every day, which have lowered anxiety, the HBOT, the hyperbaric chamber, I've been using that since I got back home. The cognitive therapy has been big. I've been working on so many different blocks and different things. Like I'm just trying to figure out, like, okay, what don't I care about in my life? Okay, here's one issue with my life I'd like to change. Here's one issue about myself I don't really care for. I want to improve. And so every week we're just knocking out those little things. I'm starting to run out of shit. So that feels pretty amazing too. Yeah, I really appreciate my therapist Paige. She's awesome. So yeah, between all that, I just was feeling so good. I don't, and when I came home, I was wondering, I was like, okay, well, do I want to go and use cannabis a little bit for writing sessions or just to relax or just whatever? But every time I would go outside, like, why? Like, why do I need it? Before it was to bring down, aggression or anxiety or just overall irritability. Now I'm like, no, like I'm happy. I feel good. So what is it going to do for me? I realize all it's probably going to do is make me more tired. So why do that? I don't need to escape. I don't need it to enjoy anything. I could sit outside and enjoy the beauty of our backyard. I could come inside. I could play a video game and have fun. I could start playing my guitar and enjoy that. So it's like, since I don't need it, why am I going to use it? Especially knowing that it is not a good thing for my brain. It's done a lot of damage to my brain. So viewing it like that, I was like, okay, cool. I'm in a good place. I don't need it. Um, while I was there, oh, one of the other cool things that happened while I was gone, or right before I left, was that I finally opened up my store. So on marktullius.com. If you go there, you check out the store. I have not only the books that you can get signed copies of, but I started doing all these Try Not to Die products. So we have shirts, we have hoodies, we have a puzzle. I'm currently working on the puzzle with my family. It's so much fun. I used to love doing puzzles as a kid. Forgot how much I enjoyed doing them with the kids. And so we've been working on that. That's been really cool. We have, oh yeah, there's a bunch of stuff. You got to go check it out. There's iPhone cases. There's every day I'm trying to add one new thing because it's really fun to do. I'm doing it all through Printful. It's super easy to design, fun to do. So I was like, why not just do it? But one of the reasons I hadn't been doing it was fear of rejection, fear of failure. Like, am I going to know what to do? Am I going to do it wrong? Is anyone even going to want this? But thank you to Sammy Dyer. She really was the final push that got me to put stuff up. She had requested a hoodie a couple times, said, hey, I want to buy it, like just make it. And just knowing how much she enjoys the series, and the several people like her that will write to me that own the whole series, that just tell me how much fun it is. Like that's huge. I don't think they realize just how much of an influence that is on me, how what a positive thing that is. So thank you guys for that. That is awesome. That got me moving on that. We have the Try Not to Die blanket. I've been using that every day. I love how that turned out. So yeah, that's all fucking super awesome on that end. And thank you to Ravens End bookstore in Winnipeg, Canada. So she had met John Cone and saw his Try Not to Die on slash tag. I believe it's at Comic Con a little while back. She wrote to me, said she would like 3 copies of each of the books in the Try Not to Die series. And I was like, oh, that's awesome. Super cool. First bookstore in Canada to do it. And after the first day, she wrote back, she's like, oh my God, we're going to need 10 of each. And I was like, oh, okay, that's awesome. So how cool it is to see that. Really trying to get the books in bookstores and libraries. The way you could help me with that. So if you enjoyed the books, whether it's the Try Not to Dies or it's my other books, um, go to marktullius.com. If you hit the order button, then it has the sell sheet, which libraries, bookstores, you can send that to them and just say, hey, I really like this author's books. Can you carry some of these books? You can tell them which ones you really want. And so everything is there so they can order it through Ingram. That would be huge. Between that and reviews and wearing Try Not to Die gear, like that's amazing. There's nothing more that could help. I think those are probably the 3 biggest things. So, and sending me messages and everything. Because when I was talking with my therapist about success one day, talking about how, everything in my life has been super awesome, way more of a success than I ever could imagine, being the husband, being the father, being our house, just everything, like just unbelievable. I'm very, very grateful. But the thing I had been missing out on, the thing I felt bad about was financial success of my business. It just hasn't been there. I've put so much time and money. I mean, shit, over 30 contracts for Try Not to Dies, and I still need 20 to come through, stuff like that. So we have not been successful yet, but it's been way more of a success than I ever could have imagined. Just the connection with readers, with people telling me, you know, letting me know just how much fun that is, how much they enjoy it. Crystal DeBoard, she's been amazing. She just recently read 25 Perfect Days and said she was blown away by it and said that might be one of her favorite books now from me. So that was super cool. And that's like a book that I forgot about. So yeah, the connections with readers has been really cool. That alone is more of a success than I ever could have imagined. It means more to me. So thank you guys for that. Thank you for the letters and everything else. Try Not to Die is growing like crazy. So not only do we have Try Not to Die Super High, that's going to be out relatively soon. PW Foyce just wrote to me last night that he just finished the testings for the Meadow Spire Mall. Meadow Spire Mall is going to be amazing. It is the longest Try Not to Die probably that will ever be. The main story is 90,000 words. Couldn't put it down. Loved it. And I don't know how long the death scenes are, but I'm guessing with his style, it's kind of long. But he's an amazing writer, beautiful writer. So those are going to be sent. Lindsay right now is working on the edit of the main story, and then I'll send her the death scenes. So that book will be out before Halloween. I just got a message right before, or I might have been on vacation, from Kevin Anderson about Trying Not to Die in Roswell. He said that one should be done before the end of July. So that's crazy because I totally had kind of written that off for another year or two. It's been a while since we had talked about it, but he finally was able to get back on it. And so how cool is that? This Damned House by Robert Essig. I think he's almost finished with his. Angel Van Atta was saying that she wants to get hers done before the Books and Brew event, August 3rd. Still working on a tournament of Mortem with Wes Levine. I believe Renee just finished up or is finishing up her portion of the Trend Has Died by Your Own Hand. Then Wes and I will get to that next year. So there are a lot of books coming out. And I didn't even like the cool thing is I forget about books because there's just so many. And a lot of this is because I am no longer a co-author on lots of these books. Like P.W. Foyce's, I'm not the co-author. On Roberts, I'm not the co-author. I'm simply going to be assistant editor and publisher. So that allows me to get all these cool ass books out in the Try Not to Die universe. I don't, I no longer need to have, not like an ego thing where I need my name on the cover. Like, no, it's like, it's awesome. And to be able to do all this is great. Damn. See, and I already forget. So we also have Trying to Die Between the Worlds with my buddy Nico in Germany. That's being worked on, and I'm currently translating his Abraxas. So he has a 21 book, maybe even more series. He's just finishing up book one right now, but every week or 2 weeks we talk on WhatsApp and go over his books. It's such a cool thing. Imagine Harry Potter, but much darker and smarter and way more violent. And that's what his book is. So being able to do the English version of that, I have a feeling that could be incredibly successful. I'm going to try to sell it to a big publisher. If not, I will do it myself because I think it could do incredibly well. So there is no shortage of Try Not to Dies and other cool shit headed your way. And I couldn't be more excited about it. So, yeah, also going to a lot of festivals. Got to get ready for that, gearing up for that. July 27th, we'll be going to Connecticut, Authors Against Abuse. I have a really great friend there, Carl Domney, his son Luca, who's my son's one of his great friends. We'll be seeing them, hanging out with them, doing that book fair, seeing the Lebecs, my family out there. So that'll be amazing. And then my family and I are going to Chicago for the Books and Brew event. That's going to be a crazy event. If you don't know Books of Horror, they're a Facebook group, probably the best Facebook group horror related out there. It's so positive, so incredible. They do so much for indie authors. But they're putting on the event, and I think there are 8 or 9 different Try Not to Die authors that are going to be there. Duncan Ralston, John Cohn, Angel Van Atta, MJ Mars. Man, we got a bunch. Damon Manx. It's going to be awesome to be able to connect with all of them, to meet all these new people. The very next morning, my wife suggested we do a Try Not to Die brunch or a breakfast. So we're going to have all the authors meet and their families. We'll have a nice breakfast. I'm going to poison at least one of the dishes. No one's going to know what it's going to be. And so we'll see how that turns out. But yeah, so Try Not to Die at breakfast. From there, we'll come back home. School starts up, but my son is being homeschooled, so that's going to free us up to do even more stuff. He's going to be working on a Try Not to Die with me. and able to go to different events. I'm going to do HorrorCon and an event in Long Beach. Both of those are local, no travel needed there. But then we're going to go to Knoxville, Tennessee for the Tennessee Readers and Book event, something like that. And then in October, St. Louis for AuthorCon 4. We'll figure out the rest later, but I know for sure in 2025, I'll be going to Frankfurt. That Buchmesse, that thing's going to be awesome. And maybe some other ones in Europe. I'm going to check it out. Also, I'm going to hit one in Toronto, Canada for sure. My wife wants to go there, check it out. I would love to do an event there. In 2026, that's when I plan on going to the London Book Fair because MJ Marr's book will be out. I really want to push that, Trying to Die in the UK, and I haven't been there. So, what a cool opportunity. So, yeah, all kinds of awesome shit is happening. Yeah, couldn't feel better about things. So, let's end this on an incredibly positive note. Let's start this Trying Not to Die in a Dark Fairy Tale. Now, I'm not going to promise that I'll read it every week. Who knows when I'll be back, right? If I'm recording once every 3 weeks. But you can buy the book and just read it yourself. Pretend it's me reading it to you. Or Evan. He's probably way better at this. All right, here we go. Try Not to Die in a Dark Fairy Tale. The deathbed is ornate, its golden posts and sturdy frame gleaming under candlelight. Our father, the frail King Dorian, struggles to stay upright on tasseled pillows, groaning beneath a massive blanket dyed with lilac and lavender. Keaton pushes past me and rushes to father's right hand, but I'm not inclined to hurry. Queen Ravinia has filled the room with the strongest smelling flowers she can conjure, but the stink of sweat and vomit grows more intense with each step I take toward him. As stubborn as his fever, father insists he is freezing cold, but the stained glass windows are shut tight and don't invite any semblance of fresh air. Once upon a time, he was a fearsome warrior, a chiseled giant dwarfing lesser men. According to his many stories, father slayed countless foes and survived untold run-ins with would-be assassins. Today, however, the king, often called Dorian the Strong, can hardly speak a minute before succumbing to terrible coughing fits. He doesn't have the fortitude to lift the heavy blanket from his wheezing chest. His perfectly bronzed skin has gone sallow and sags beneath rheumy eyes, and even in his sorry state, he still wears his bulky crown. For just over a week, a sudden, unrelenting sickness has felled father. Soon our kingdom will be without its leader, the man who has given decades of guidance and love to his people. I take father's left hand and give a gentle squeeze. Nothing I can say will ease his suffering. When I'm gone, someone must wear the crown, father says, his voice hoarse. The question is, who's worthy of the throne? Keaton is only 2 minutes older than I am, and he's always first to offer a solution. I can do it, he says. Of course. Keaton thinks he could do anything. Since toddlerhood, he's been overconfident and foolhardy, blindly leaping into situations with no real plans of action. He finds trouble first and then adapts to the challenges at hand. Because he inherited father's aptitude for sword fighting and sport, my brother has found success in nearly every turn of his reckless life. But athletic prowess will do little for him as king. Physical strength is hardly the most important attribute of a ruler, I tell Keaton. Father nods, grimacing from the movement. That's true, Barnaby. Leadership requires strategy, as well as... He coughs with such force I expect blood and pieces of lung to spill from his lips. Strategy, he rasps, as well as consistency. Keaton scoffs. I'm consistently a champion. Father stares at my brother. If you're to lead, you must always be here for your citizens, putting others' needs before your own. Not consistently be outside the castle seeking thrills, I add. So I should be more like you then? Boring, bookish Barnaby? Keaton suggesting I should be ashamed for the hours I put in every day at the library. There's nothing boring about what I read. Father waits for Keaton to meet his gaze. Your triumphs are many and well-deserved, but you must rein in your wild ways. A dangerous lifestyle is a selfish lifestyle. I too once lived like you until responsibility forced me onto a different path, a better path. Give me that responsibility, says Keaton, and I'll adjust to all that comes with the title of king. I made mistakes at first, and so will the next leader of this land. Father coughs again. But I insist. Whoever replaces me must have a better head on his shoulders than I had at his age. Otherwise, his errors will multiply early and often, and ultimately harm his people. Keaton groans. Just because Barnaby receives high marks from his tutors doesn't make him more fit to lead. He doesn't know how to command a room. He'd rather listen to imaginary characters than speak with actual human beings. He wilts in the presence of girls, and you expect him to direct our kingdom to greatness? I I don't wilt, but there's truth to what Keaton spews. Whenever I'm flustered or caught off guard, I tend to stammer, grow clammy, and I wish I were in the comfort of my velvet-lined reading chair. I don't do well with spontaneity, so social situations can often be tricky. Father sighs. You, Barnaby, have intelligence and the gift of foresight. You, Keaton, have bravery and charm to spare. If only you two shared your traits. Each of them is valuable for a position of power. I'm smart enough to understand that I can't lead without Barnaby's assistance. I'd be happy to have him advise me as my chief strategist. I snort. In what world would you ever listen to anything I have to say? Keaton sneers at me. In what world would a nervous pile of quivering puke ever be the ideal candidate for king? I look like puke? I can't help but laugh. We're twins, you imbecile. Keaton's onto something, however. Deep down, I don't want to be king. I've always figured the crown would become available when I was much, much older and far more prepared to make an argument against my brother. But right now, my only wish is to be 16 years old, having no responsibility more important than completing my daily studies. I expected father to live long enough for a blizzard of white to engulf his burly beard, long enough to someday play with his grandchildren. Dorian the Strong always seemed invincible to me, which was incredibly naive on my part. After all, mother died young, didn't she? Drowned in the moat meant to protect our castle, protect our family. Now the opportunity to lead has arrived so prematurely, I'm nowhere near equipped to seize it. I'm in no state to guide anyone, let alone a community of thousands. Keaton's right. I can barely converse with members of the opposite sex, and I'm a prince with every advantage on earth. Many a maiden has attempted to hold these hands, and anxiety has always pushed my fingers to turn pages instead. Privately, I wish I had a fraction of Keaton's confidence. If my worries were divided even by the briefest moments of self assurance, how much easier would everything be? Alas, I am who I am, and our people need King Barnaby the wise, not King Barnaby who cries. Though even such a ruler would be better suited for the role than King Keaton the careless, a fool likely to lead his followers to poverty and doom. I can't let my bullheaded brother trample over all father has built. Keaton, if father's final decree is to declare me as his successor, I'll treat you fairly, brother, and I'll give you a coveted position by my side. It's atypical for me to antagonize him, but he's insulted me enough for one day. Surely you'd exceed expectations as our newest court jester. Keaton fumes and tackles me to the stone floor. He drives his fist into my ribs. I press my thumbs into his eyes. Father coughs, begging us to stop our squabble. But our bout moves on. We wrestle on the floor, clawing at each other like rabid tomcats. My foot catches an end table and a candelabra falls over, igniting ill-placed drapery. We both stand, jaws agape, while the wall beside Father's enveloped in flame. Keaton rushes forward and tears the blanket free of Father's body. He throws it over the fire to try to smother it, but the flames are too strong and the cloth catches fire. He yelps and tosses the blanket to the floor, where it singes my ankles. The floor suddenly resembles a roaring pit from hell. Smoke chokes all three of us. Father is trapped behind a growing wall of fire. Keaton stills himself to vault over the conflagration. There's an opening between the flames on the far side of the bed, a way to Father's side without risking injury. Keaton can't see it from where he stands, but I don't know if I can get there in time. All right, what are you guys going to do? Keaton has the best chance of saving Father. Let him be the hero. Turn to page 139. Pull Keaton back and scream for help. Turn to page 166, or push Keaton out of the way so I can save Father and prove I'm not a coward. Turn to page 150. All right, guys, that is it. Make your choice. Choose wisely. Two of those things are going to get your ass killed. It's been a lot of fun. Hopefully, I'll keep this up. I do enjoy talking to you guys. I enjoy talking about me. I can't help it. Things are good. The series is good. I have some incredible friends. And yeah, I'm loving life. So I hope you guys are doing just as great. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Stick around for the next one. Be sure you like, subscribe, do all that good stuff. Help me out. Tell your bookstores and libraries you need my books in their stores. So that would be incredible. Thank you guys so much. I will talk to you later. Peace.